Moshe returned to Hashem and said, Hashem, why have you done evil to this people? Why have you sent me? From the time I came to Pharaoh to speak in your name, he did evil to this people, but you did not rescue your people. And then Hashem said to Moshe, it's the first verse in chapter 6, which ends last week's Torah portion. Hashem said to Moshe, now you will see what I shall do to Pharaoh. For through a strong hand he will send them out, and with a strong hand will he drive them out from his land. It's a very interesting question, this expression Hashem said now. Like, what changed exactly? What does that mean exactly now? And one idea is that you can't have like a redemption until you hit absolute rock bottom. And now that you're in a situation, and Mitzrayim, of course, as you know, literally means the narrow place, and it's about a state of total being really choked, being constricted so completely. That's this whole idea of everything that Egypt represents today as well. And you can't really appreciate what Hashem is able to do for you until you reach a certain place of despair and you stop counting on anything else and anybody else but God himself, like bringing you down to the bottom in order to be able to bring you out. So that's one of the ideas of this that Hashem is introducing this idea now. Now you know. Now it's that you feel totally helpless, and that you are absolutely in a state of like desolation and desperation. Now you understand that nothing here can be accomplished through any sort of ordinary means. And that actually flows like so perfectly into the beginning of Parshat Va'era, where all of a sudden we have something changing here. Like God spoke to Moshe and he said, I'm Hashem, which we knew before. But he's saying there's a new element that's being introduced into the mix now, because the identity that the forefathers knew me as was El Shaddai. El Shaddai. But with my name Hashem, I did not make myself known to them. And this is a really hard thing to understand. I mean, besides the whole idea of Hashem's name and everything that means, and all the different ways that we relate to Hashem, his identities, because of course there's only one God, but the only way that we can understand him is through the way he expresses himself and he relates to creation through these different names which represent different attributes. But the thing about that verse that's so hard to understand is we know very well that we saw the name of Hashem in the book of Genesis from time to time. We know that Hashem spoke to the forefathers also in that guise, but yet he's saying here, they didn't know me by this name. Now, what is the name El Shaddai all about? What is the name El Shaddai all about?
It has to do with judgment and strength, and at least it's my understanding of it, in the fact that they never questioned Hashem. It has to do with the idea that anytime Hashem spoke to the fathers, the Avot, they said, okay, yes, this is God's will. Everything that happens is God's will. That's the way I understand it. But I'm sure you have more.
That's definitely true. There's a certain aspect of their relationship with him it had a certain kind of limitation. Limitation is the key word to understand the word Shaddai. Now, there's a word there that's associated with that holy name, Shaddai, which is Dalet Yud, which literally means enough. Like the song Dayenu, the famous song that we sing on the Seder night. Everybody's familiar with that, right? Dayenu means it would have been enough for us. So Dalet Yud, not like the English word, it means enough. And this word Shaddai, which is one of the appellations of the Holy One, blessed be he, the connotation is like borders and a certain kind of order. For example, a famous statement that our sages use to give this concept over is that Hashem said to his world, die, meaning enough, meaning up until here. In other words, he set a limit to the sea with the sand of the beach and with the coast, right? So otherwise the world is expanding, everything's expanding, and so God, in his infinite capacity and infinite wisdom, when he created the world, he set a certain kind of aspect of limitation, otherwise there would be no creation. So everything has its proper place, everything has its borders, and that's the way, this is an unbelievable idea, that's the way the forefathers understood him. And Avraham, for example, this makes perfect sense because Avraham looked at the world and what did he see? He saw this perfect order. That's what actually brought him to Hashem, right? We've talked about this. Maimonides talks about how he contemplated the universe, he contemplated the wind and the stars and the moon, and the mistake that all the pagans had made was by worshiping all of those different powers. And Avraham Avinu, he understood that there's an order to the universe, and all the things that Hashem created, they're part of his praise, they're part of his orderly system. And that's like Shaddai. In other words, there is a system and there is a limitation to everything in its proper place. That is the natural order. But the whole thing about the Exodus from Egypt and the wonders of the Exodus of Egypt and everything on the deepest level about the plagues is that Hashem showed, no, there is no order. Don't think that I am limited to the order that I created. And in fact, the famous expression that Chazal, that our sages use when they describe the whole process of the wonders and all the miracles and all the unbelievable, amazing kind of supernature is the word. Right. Manifestations that Hashem conducted in Egypt is that the expression that Chazal uses, that he broke the bank. That's the expression is Shaddad et marachot, which means that he actually broke the system, and he showed that he is, because so many people think, oh, I got it, God is nature. Okay, this idea that like God is nature, and that is the same thing as if I say, well, I believe in nature. It's like Mother Nature, right? I say, oh, that's my belief in God. No, Hashem is saying, no, that's not it. Nature is nothing but an agent of how the world continues to exist, but I am totally above that, and if need be, I can change that and supersede that completely. And that was exactly what the lesson in Egypt was all about. And it wasn't just a lesson for Pharaoh. It wasn't just about Pharaoh's denial, and it wasn't just about Pharaoh, not recognizing Hashem. And it wasn't just about proving something to him. It was about making a mark on all of creation for all time. That's this unbelievable idea that when we sanctify Shabbat every week, which is like the holiest time of the week, when we make Kiddush on Friday night over a cup of wine, and we sanctify the day, and it's all about Hashem having created the world and then declared that there's a Sabbath every week from which the universe derives new strength. In that prayer of Kiddush, we say that it's a remembrance of the going out of Egypt. How does that even make any sense? What does the going out of Egypt have to do with way back then in creation? But those two events are actually on a parallel, because it was when God took Israel out of Egypt that actually substantiated everything that we understand and more about the God of creation. Those two events are like twin events, because everything that Hashem demonstrated at creation, he actually turned on its head in the story of the Exodus. So this now thing is it's like two sides. There's the first thing that I mentioned is you have to hit rock bottom and understand that you have a complete dependence on Hashem. It has to be real. It had to have become to the situation that they saw that they're in despair without Hashem. And the other side of the now that begins our parsha this week of Va'era is, I am Hashem, and now I'm going to be manifesting a different way than I was with El Shaddai, and I can change reality. Everything is up for grabs. Everything is fluid. So these lessons, of course, are important for us, for every one of us, because we also get into a certain kind of headspace. See, again, the whole thing about the Galut Mitzrayim and coming out of Egypt being mentioned 50 times in the Torah, right? Again, this is it's just a very, very powerful central motif. It's so central that it's one of it's a mitzvah, right? It's a commandment to remember it every single day. It's one of the things that we have to make sure that every single day we remember that we were slaves in Egypt and Hashem took us out. And that's not just like some historical thing. It's not a yard site, It's not a commemoration or a remembrance. It's because we are in that kind of vortex all the time, slip sliding between exile and redemption. It's a very personal thing. And another point that I tried to make in the video last week, it's personal, it's national, it's global,